Hey everybody, I am here with Scott and I'm Jeremy, the Client Success Director with Fitness Business Mentors. And we're chatting with Scott today. Exciting for Scott, just signed on recently his first client within Fitness Business Mentors for a $9,000 package for 18 weeks. And we're gonna be spending some time just talking about the process and the things that Scott has been working on and sharing a little bit about his story. So Scott, I'd love to introduce you and just tell us a little bit about what you do.
You forgot to mention paid in full on the spot.
Yes, paid in full, right on the spot.
Yeah,
Cash in hand.
9K. Yeah, 9K, no payment plans, no nothing.
Absolutely.
So what was the question?
Yeah, just tell us a little bit about your background, Scott.
Gosh, my background, really, I was that really nerdy fat kid growing up. And for me in particular, I was obese from about age 8 until I was 18. And that really came from a really awful, toxic home situation. And I'm sure that other people can relate to that. I wasn't Harry Potter living under the stairs or anything, but it was pretty rough. And I did a lot of coping with eating, had a really, really horrible diet. And that persisted until I was about 18. And what really shifted for me was I discovered dance and performance arts. And that actually got me connected with my body. It gave me a reason to want to feel better and eat better. And through that process, I started off getting into the world of dance, which made me want to understand my body. From there, I got into body work, doing massage therapy for the first 12 years of my career, because I really wanted to understand the body and actually had a really nice career doing that. While at the same time, I was continuing my exploration of the body through circus training. So I went to a professional circus school, was studying Chinese acrobatics and Western gymnastics. So kind of like two different angles of approaching the same thing, which is this more acrobatic or gymnastic mastery of the body. And had this really organic transition where I was working with thousands of people with all different kinds of bodies. And people were coming in to see me as a massage therapist, as a body worker, because they were in pain. And over the years, I realized that a lot of their pain was coming from their own lack of understanding of their own body. They wouldn't even understand exactly why it was hurting or what was hurting.
Sure.
And a lot of times, for example, if it was back pain, their back, they'd go, oh, my back seized up or my back locked up, their muscles are spasming. Well, really, it's a structural engineering problem, as I came to understand it, where the body has a structure and you actually, as a massage therapist, you can't get rid of the tension. You have to rebalance it. When your tension is balanced, you don't feel it. When imagine a suspension bridge, if you increase the tension here, it's going to change the whole structure. And so what they were missing, for example, in this case, a lot of times would be core strength. And so my massage clients they understood what I was doing, and I was talking to them and they knew about my other training. And so they would say, hey, can you end the massage 10 minutes early and teach me some core exercises? And that went over so well that they started requesting full sessions. And at a certain point, I just had to make the change to actually helping people fix their bodies permanently.
Yeah.
And that was really the birth of Whole New Body, combining the understanding of the body through body work and the biomechanics of the body with the biomechanics disciplines of dance and gymnastics, where you have to have everything really working together perfectly. And then the educational and coaching piece. Because most people, they're coming in, we don't have a user manual for our body. And I like to say it's what PE class should have been. It's a real physical education, not the PE class where you think you're getting a physical education, but they're just making you run around and they're never teaching you anything, which is part of how I had injuries from that when I was younger, like dislocating my shoulder because they were testing on how many pull-ups I could do, having never trained me on how to do pull-ups.
With your transition into very traditional personal training, in the sense of trading dollars for hours, dollars for minutes, I know that then the transition started for you to start making that transition into more of an online realm. If you can rewind back to when we first started together within Fitness Business Mentors, what were some of the challenges and the problems that you were having when trying to make that transition into more of an online variation of what you were already doing in person?
Well, I'd say that the problems, the difficulties that I was having were holdovers from just being a normal coach, which is marketing and sales.
Sure.
Which is how do you speak, especially for people, if you are a fitness professional who has a very high level understanding of things, and you're talking to people who don't know, they're just in pain. And how do you get them to that place of awareness? And so marketing and visibility was a big thing. I'd already shifted online because of the pandemic, like a lot of people.
Yep.
I had to close down my brick and mortar group training space that I had built up. That was pretty sad. But yeah, a lot of people were shifting to online. And the biggest problem for me was really building an online network from scratch.
Sure.
So how do you do that? That was a major hurdle. And then also, how do I translate what I'm doing at such a complicated level into a way that, and I'm still working on this, into a way that somebody who hasn't made it their life's profession to know this stuff, how do you communicate to them?
Right.
And it's not dumbing it down, because the clients that we work with they're very smart, very successful people. It's just like anything in life, you become an expert at where you focus.
Yep.
And so they're not going to understand. They're not going to understand the jargon, and they're not going to necessarily understand even the problem. And so it's like a translation issue. So that's been a big one. And as well as, I would say, there's a piece about being confident in your presentation, and especially for someone like you or myself, where it's hard to start over. It's hard to start something from the beginning. And even if we know it, what you would tell your client, if they're building up strength from scratch, you have to kind of suck for a while. It's not gonna be pretty for a while, and you have to do that. And I think that's been a major component here. And another thing I want to share is, this is a breakthrough that I've had very recently, because there's all the advice out there. There's a lot of different fitness coaches. There's a lot of different business coaches. And this is true no matter what the domain. You'll learn something, your teacher will teach you something, and it makes sense. You think you understand it, but then there's a level where it clicks and you actually get it on a deeper level. And I want to give the example of that was the idea of a client avatar. Because I've had other business coaches, and I've gone through other business programs. I'm the kind of person where I always want to coach, because I understand that really helps me grow. And almost all of them, any kind of business coach, they're going to say, step one, figure out your ideal client avatar. Who is your client? Who is your ideal client? And it's always been for the starters, that's a difficult exercise for some people to begin with, because they're afraid to chunk it down. They're afraid to get specific, because they think it's going to narrow their field of opportunity.
Yep.
And I think one of the best examples I heard was, if you're a doctor, right? You're like, oh, you have health problems. Well, everyone has something like that. But then now you chunk it down to, say, surgeon. Okay, now you're narrowing the funnel. Then it's like a neurosurgeon just working on brains. Now you're a pediatric neurosurgeon. It's so hyper specific, and yet now you become the go-to person for the hundreds, if not thousands, of people that are looking for just that thing, and you actually have more business than you can handle. So the first part is getting over the fear, but the real breakthrough for me was understanding what it meant to have. It's an avatar. People say, oh, it's your ideal client avatar. And it's almost like if you've ever seen the movie Avatar, right? They go into this other body. And I finally understand the hardest part is you have to put yourself into that person. You have to understand them so well. You're almost speaking into you go into them, you embody them. You're like, how do I feel as this person? What is my life like? And then you step out of that and you talk into that. And that's been a phenomenal thing, where you hear it so many times, but until you and Samim started working with me, it never clicked on that deeper level, where now I feel it and I understand what I'm doing when I do that.
Scott, would you mind touching a little bit on some of, again, the building blocks of Fitness Business Mentors is creating an offer that is very specific for your type of client. And I know you and I have had conversations in the past about what that pillar process and that offer process looked like in our program. Would you mind hitting on how that's helped your process so far?
Like the pillar and the offer?
Yeah, to be spending so much time early on going through that specifically before necessarily even getting into the marketing piece or getting into the posting or content creation.
I think that it's about getting really clear about what you do and what you have to say and why it's different. And even within the broad realms of fitness or finance or relationships, there's a lot of things that you'll see in lots of different coaches. Like you guys aren't the only program that talks about your ideal client avatar.
Yep.
Right. So there are those things that carry, but there's also your unique personal spin on it. And for me, for example, when I talked about making content, a lot of times I have to think about it. I'll be in this, it's almost like I feel like I'm not really being productive because I'm thinking about it and mulling it over, to the point where I finally sit down to write and it flows out. And I thought about this with respect to doing video content as well. It's you have to know what you want. You have to know what you want to say, or you have to know what your offering is.
Yeah.
So inside and out, so deeply that you can just speak and extemporaneously on it.
Yeah.
And so the process of writing down the pillars and building that offer out, like putting it down in writing and structuring it, it gets you, the person, more in touch with what they're doing. And that fuels the content, that fuels the message. Now you know what you're going to say. And so the nice thing is when you do it in terms of pillars, because there's different components, different silos of things, like, so body transformation is a whole part of it. A lot of it's getting your eating right. But then you have to have also the training. This is actually, I have my 4 circles that I have here. There's the big circles of transformation, 1, 2, 3, 4 circles. It's like you have the nutrition, you've got the actual training, you've got the mindset piece, which is actually the highest and most difficult piece, because it's inner. What I've found a lot is it's inner work.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely
huge. It's huge. You actually have to, if this is true, I just want to digress for a second, because this is the major breakthrough that will help anyone who's listening, which is, the reason that change is so hard, whether it's in we're trying to change your body and get in shape, or you're trying to have better relationships, or you're trying to make more money, is that the person that is making more money than you, that's at that next higher level, that wow, you think to yourself, I could never be a millionaire or whatever. The person who's making that next tier, the person who has that next level God tier physique, the person who has that amazing relationship, they're approaching not just that piece, but their whole life is different. They're a different person. And so part of the thing that makes change so hard is you have, wherever you are and wherever you want to be, there's something about where you are. You actually have to become a different person. Not that you're not you, but your whole life, your approach to life, your orientation within yourself. And it's sort of like, it can be hard for us to let go of that, because you're letting something die. You're letting a part of yourself die. It's almost like, it's like when you grow up, it's like the boy must die so the man can live, right? So I went on a little bit of a tangent. Get me back into it. We're talking about pillars.
Yeah, with the pillars, and I think the important piece to note, and what you and I have talked about, is spending the time really understanding and having a very specific offer that is tailored to your exact client. Is, in your case, getting your first CEO client from LinkedIn. The sales process, it was easy, right? Like there's definitely room for everyone to grow within their sales skills and communication skills, but you brought your ideal client in, and we just talked about your program, and he was sold on the spot, took out his credit card and paid in the $9,000, paid in full on the spot.
Well, and he signed up with me in spite of my errors. Like, that was my first real sales conversation that I'd had from that particular venue. And of course you're nervous, and of course you want to make the sale. You're hungry for it. You want to help the person, and you want to, it's nice to have a win to make the money and get paid. And I made some mistakes in the first sales call. Like, for example, one of my bad habits that I'm working through is my tendency to, on a sales call, to do too much coaching. And trying to transmit instead of trying to get them to feel into their problem, because they have to make that decision. And, I said, so maybe I wasn't as confident as I could have been, or I hung a lampshade on, I kind of called out the sales process a little bit because I wasn't quite comfortable with it. But he signed up with me anyway, because he was just the ideal client. And he was attracted to me in the first place, on LinkedIn, because he had seen things I had written. So when I reached out to him, he's like, hey, actually, yeah, I'm interested. Let's talk. And I actually just got another one of those, hey, Scott, yeah, this sounds great. I want to talk to you this morning. So consistency is a big part of it. I want to say, like, it's such a big part, but at the same time, I want to get back to the fitness business mentor thing. Because can I just riff for a second?
Absolutely.
There's two components, right? In terms of being a good coach, no matter what you're coaching people on. There's like the soft skill, which I would call you have to hold the other person. You have to meet them with where they're at, hold the higher vision, see them in that higher vision, and then be patient with them. And you guys have been so patient with me, because I've had to, it's very confronting when you have to do the one thing you didn't want to do, that you were resisting doing, but on the other side of that thing is the win, right? You have to hold that even when they're in resistant. The other thing is the know-how, because consistency is great, but it's very easy to do consistently the wrong thing and not get any results. And that's the know-how. So a lot of people, for example, in fitness, they make their mind to get in shape, and so they just think they've got the drive and they're going to be consistent, but they just start they just start running. Just, oh, I'm just going to go run from 0 to 60, right? Or I'm just going to start doing push-ups, and they're doing them, but their form is really crappy. And so, yeah, they're consistent. They're cranking out a lot of reps, but then all over within a short period of time, now they get injuries and aches and pains, and things aren't quite working right. You know, if they had done the right thing consistently, they would have actually proceeded. And that's where I feel like you guys have really helped me, because even within any subtask like marketing, like create a post. Okay, like how do you create that post, and how do you structure that? Like, how do you even write it, and then how do you structure it, and then how do you edit it, or how do you create a thought? Like, there's all these little subtasks that it's overwhelming if you haven't done it before. And you guys are really great about breaking it down step by step by step, you know, so that you can get the little pieces done, and then all of a sudden it starts coming together. And then as you're getting in those reps, that consistency, it becomes more natural and embodied, and you don't have to think about it so much. But in the beginning, when you're learning something new, it's just like when you're coaching someone on a form, there's like, you're trying to think of different parts of your body at the same time, and it's, oh my God, it's overwhelming. Just focus on this one thing, drill it down, and then do a regression, right? Oh, this piece is too hard. Let's regress it down to the smaller subtask, get that locked in, then build it in, right? It becomes this modular interlocking system, just like our bodies.
With us talking so much on LinkedIn, you know, I guess my real final question to hit on is, what was your LinkedIn presence before starting this program? Because I think that's a big hurdle for people.
I mean, I want to say it was 0. I created a LinkedIn profile prior, and I had added a few people, but I suppose I'm a good example for that, because I should say I intentionally nuked all of my social media around 2016, 2017. Like on Facebook, I never really used Instagram, but like mainly like Facebook. I never really had a LinkedIn. I destroyed all of my like online network. You know, you build up like online friends over time. They're not people that you know. It's like I kind of chunked it down to just, you know, family and old friends from back home, because I was so burnt out with especially in 2016, where it was an election year. There was tons of political polarization. It's only gotten worse since then. And so for me, social media it's so daunting. It's such a daunting thing to think of making connections that way. And so I think I might have had like a dozen, maybe like 20 connections on LinkedIn or something, but they weren't like quality connections. It was like old clients, people I've worked with, nothing, but really having to build the network from scratch. And you guys have really helped that. I mean, obviously it's still a work in progress. So we're about to be in July. So it's been about 6 months since I've been doing this. And I went from 20 connections, and I think I'm rapidly approaching 650 or 700. And we recently revamped it. So now I'm going to be building even more, and they're going to be even higher quality connections.
Finding the right people and speaking the right message to them.
Honestly, my biggest hurdle has always been exposure and marketing, and just probably like a lot of professionals. I do this work because I'm so passionate about it, because I love that I'm actually helping people. I'm creating a meaningful difference. I mean, I have people that probably have saved their lives, frankly, because you know, they come to me and they were on medication for cholesterol or blood pressure. And my best friend passed away he had an aneurysm, and it was high blood pressure related, right? So people come to me, and within a few months they're getting off of medication. So I know that I'm really good at what I do, but call it whatever, it's my personal temperament or just my background, I've always had a hard part with the marketing, which is where you're putting yourself out there. You're putting yourself out there for the world to see. And it's funny, because people watching me now are probably not going to think like, oh, Scott's shy, but I can be deathly shy when it comes to being in front of people. And so that's where I feel like that's the other piece. You guys bring the know-how, but you've also really helped me see myself, reflect to me, and see myself in a way where I can feel confident about who I am and what my message is, and not be shy to put it out there. And the reality is, if we don't do that, then we can't help anybody, and we're not even serving our purpose in the first place.
Right. Well, I appreciate you sharing some of your story, Scott, and talking about the wins that you've had. We've obviously got some work to do, and we're always progressing, but you've been off to an amazing start, and I appreciate you sharing some of your story today.
Thank you so much.